Chapter 10. Blessed be the Lord. Blessed be the Lord, who daily loadeth us with benefits. Psalm 68:19. How does a ministry start in elementary school, middle school, and high school in just a matter of a year, from scratch? We needed books, desks, chalkboards, and everything in between. And this is not even considering all the teachers and staff. Only God could have provided all these needs. As we looked forward to the time when we could open our schools, we were aware of all the items we would have to acquire. Mike had been told of commodities that the government made available for schools, and he was given the name of the government agent he was to see to receive approval for securing materials for our schools. As Mike was praying on the morning before his appointment with Mr. B, he felt strongly that God told him to give the man his testimony. This was not in accordance with Mike's reasoning at all, for he was fearful that if he began his appointment by testifying to Mr. B, he would not get his approval. Mike argued in his head with the Lord about this all the way until he reached Mr. B's office. But he knew if he was to obey the Lord, he would have to testify before stating his mission. As Mike began to give his testimony, this government agent grew very interested. Finally, he walked over to his door and locked it so that they would not be interrupted. For over an hour, Mike told of what the Lord had done in his life, and when he had finished, this man said, "I do not have the peace which I can see you have. I long to have it, but I cannot believe as you do. But you surely did not come in just to tell me these things. What can I do for you?" Mike then told him of the approval that was necessary to receive free commodities, and immediately the authorization was given. Eventually, Mike was able to lead this man to receive the Lord Jesus Christ, and they became good friends. Mike also went to the office of the Seattle Public Schools and asked them if we could have anything they were planning to throw away. Through this department, King's Garden received many truckloads of things that we could use. Mike then discovered that the head of the educational department in Olympia was a boyhood friend of his, and through his help, we began to get war surplus materials. In addition to the truckloads of supplies we were given to start our schools, King's Garden received a multitude of equipment, machinery, and other items. Furland Sanatorium, now in its new location, was very cooperative as they generously donated equipment they no longer needed. One thing they gave us was a fire engine, and our men began to hold fire drills on Saturday mornings to be prepared if more fires occurred. More fires did occur, and one was especially spectacular. We were building a duplex for needed housing, and it was almost completed. To dry out the inside of the house, a fire was started in a stove, banked, and left for the night. Early in the evening, a neighbor near the garden activated a fire alarm, and the neighborhood fire department, arriving ahead of our own, found part of the roof going up in a sheet of flames. The fire was quickly extinguished, but $1,000 worth of damage had been done, a value of approximately $11,000 today. As God supplied for all the various needs, it was wonderful to see the friendliness of so many people who wanted to help King's Garden succeed. We were given certain foods in quantities, such as string beans and corn, and we endeavored to save those foods by canning them after our workday was over. We worked until midnight some evenings, cutting up string beans and chopping corn off the cobs. However, the canning process must have been faulty. After a few days, the cans began to explode. Needless to say, we gave up this kind of work because it was too much to expect the workers to put in such long hours after their regular day's work ended to can vegetables, especially when some of them ended up exploding. Instead, we took one truckload of string beans to a cannery and had them professionally canned. And that first winter, string beans were almost constantly on the menu. From the very beginning, people gave us used clothing and furniture. This was an incredible blessing since none of us received a salary, and the small allowances we could provide were not enough to manage everyone's growing family's clothing needs. So the donated clothing that came in was carefully handled and hung on hangers in one of the rooms. A lady was put in charge of our makeshift clothing store, giving out the various articles according to the needs and sizes. The workers jokingly named the store the Royal Outfitters. For some years, most of my own clothing came through this source. Mike, too, found suits that he could wear, and a friend of his, Fred Rady, supplied him with shoes. In over 15 years, I don't believe Mike had more than 2 or 3 new pairs of shoes. Most people were shocked that Mike and I didn't take more of a salary, but we desired to lead the team at King's Garden by example. We never stopped living by faith and relying solely on the generosity of the Lord to supply every one of our needs. One journalist found our way of living surprising. After 10 years, we held a King's Garden anniversary celebration in a downtown auditorium. As Mike was giving the newspaperman the publicity for this meeting, he happened to tell him about his never having new shoes. We were surprised later to find the following reference had crept into the newspaper account. Mike Martin presides over a multi-million-dollar Christian cause, but in 10 years he has not been able to afford a new pair of shoes. Martin's shoes, like most of his other clothing, are somebody's cast-offs. He owns neither an automobile nor a home and has no bank balance. Yet Martin will rejoice in the riches of his Christian faith as he presides over King's Garden's 10th anniversary celebration in the Masonic Temple. As his wife, I must add that it would be misleading not to add that Mike was always well-dressed and drove nice cars, which were supplied by a car dealer in return for radio advertising. The Lord supplied donations in such abundance, we were able to be a blessing to others. In August 1950, there was a severe hurricane in Jamaica, and since one of our rest home guests had been a missionary there, he was quite concerned. Mr. Axel Frieden helped Mr. Jasperson crate clothing appropriate to a warm climate and get it ready for shipment. A shipping company volunteered to send this material free of charge to relieve the plight of the Jamaicans. A short time later, this letter was received. Dear Mr. Frieden, I write to thank you most sincerely for the gift of clothing which you have been good enough to make for the relief of those who suffered in the August hurricane. We are most grateful to Mr. Jesperson and to you and to all those who assisted in making this gift, which is greatly appreciated. Yours sincerely, Hugh Foote, Governor of Jamaica. The furniture that was given to the garden was used both in the workers' apartments and in and around King's Garden. Tables, chairs, and desks were needed in the offices, and practically everything that came in filled a real need. After a few years, an economy store was started on Aurora Avenue, and the extra articles that came in were sold, and the money was used to help pay the workers' allowances. In this way, it was hoped that they would be able to afford to get a few new things. This thrift store, now in a new location, continues to contribute greatly to the finances of the garden. We realized, too, that when sickness or accidents came, the workers would not be able to pay doctor bills. A small insurance plan was started. We called it our emergency fund, and each worker would pay a certain amount into this fund. It was a great relief to all our team that the families would be taken care of in unexpected situations of illness or emergency. This plan proved to be so successful that it continues today. Over and over and over, the Lord provided in abundance for every work and for every need. These testimonies I've recorded here are just a small sampling of the faithfulness God showed to all of us day after day. There would not be enough pages in this book to contain all the details, big and small, and some of the biggest blessings were yet to come.